So I am back in Albion, Michigan. It is a wonderful fall day, and I'm going to continue doing some exploration here at Riverside Cemetery. And I hope you'll join me. This is going to be a lot of fun. Before we get going, hit the subscribe button down there and make sure you hit the like button. And let's explore some even more wonderful, fascinating history at Riverside Cemetery here in Albion, Michigan. This is my second video exploring even more history at Riverside Cemetery in Albion, Michigan. In case you missed the first video, the first burial at Riverside was in 1837, and there's a detailed historic marker near the front entrance that describes much of the cemetery's early history. On the opposite side of this marker, there's even more information on some of the people buried here, and they mention Washington Gardner and Warren G. Hooper, whom I covered in my first video in this series. Riverside Cemetery is a very large place, and there's a tremendous amount of amazing stories to be told here. In this video, I will be featuring 5 more. So let's begin with the story of William Henry Harrison Beadle. He was born in a log cabin in 1838 in the town of Howard in Park County, Indiana. As a young man, he refused his father's offer of a farm and instead took $1,000 for an education. He studied engineering at the University of Michigan. Shortly after graduating in 1861, he enlisted in the Union Army during the Civil War as a captain in the 31st Indiana Volunteer Infantry, but was soon promoted to lieutenant colonel of the 1st Michigan Volunteer Sharpshooters. He was severely wounded in battle, which forced him to resign his commission. However, he returned to the Army in the Veteran Reserve Corps, serving first as a major of the 1st VRC and then of the 3rd VRC. He was eventually brevetted a Brigadier General, U.S. Volunteers, on March 13, 1865, for gallant and meritorious services during the war. Following the war, he received a law degree from the University of Michigan and practiced law for a short time in Albion with Julius Caesar Burroughs, who eventually went on to become a U.S. Senator. In 1869, Beadle was appointed Surveyor General of the Dakota Territory by Ulysses S. Grant. He helped write up the Code of 1877, which was known for his management plan for school lands whose sale would help fund public education. He became Dakota Superintendent of Public Instruction in 1879, and his school lands ideas were written into the South Dakota Constitution in 1889. His school lands idea was a model for several other western states, including Montana, Washington, Idaho, and Wyoming. Beadle served as president of the Madison State Normal School from 1889 to 1905 and was a professor there before retiring in 1912. There's a statue of him in the United States Capitol Building Rotunda in Washington, D.C., donated by the state of South Dakota in 1938. The inscription on the statue reads, "He saved the school lands." He died in 1915 in San Francisco while visiting his daughter. A note of interest, he died within a day or two of his former law partner, Senator Burroughs, who died in Kalamazoo, and the news reached Albion almost at the same time. The next story I'm featuring is that of James Thomas McGuire. He was born in November 1863 in Youngstown, Ohio, and during the Civil War, McGuire grew up in Cleveland and later moved to Albion, Michigan. He would grow up to become a professional baseball player in the 19th and early 20th century, playing for 26 years. Although his baseball career was quite nomadic, Albion remained his anchor and was interwoven into the fabric of his life as a place he always returned to when he was not playing. He began his professional career playing ball with the independent team, the Terre Haute Awkwards, in 1883. His major league journey began in 1884 with the Toledo Blue Stockings of the American Association, where he split his time behind the plate with Fleet Walker, the first African-American regular player in Major League history.
This was Fleet Walker's only season in the big leagues due to racism that placed a color barrier in the sport that would last another 63 years until broken by Jackie Robinson with the Brooklyn Dodgers. James Thomas McGuire earned the nickname the Deacon and often was referred to as Deacon Jim based on his gentlemanly, fair play approach to the game. It was widely reported that he was never put out of a game or fined. He was steady in his performance and temperament, with some of his greatest baseball years taking place with terrible teams. He was not flamboyant, but instead very hardworking. He was very much appreciated by his hometown of Albion, Michigan. He was considered the most notable catcher in his era, especially when he set a major league record for catching in every inning of 132 games by the Washington Nationals in 1895. He played one of the most difficult positions in baseball at the time, where there was not as much protection for the player as there is today. Over the years, he endured aches, pains, and many injuries, including breaking every finger in both hands, which served to cement his legacy of resilience and fortitude over a then unheard of 26 seasons of play. There's a story that he would put beefsteak into his fingerless glove to help protect his already gnarled hands from the velocity of a well-known pitcher in that era, Hank O'Day. A 1906 image of an X-ray taken on his hand still survives today, showing the extent of damage to his knuckles and fingers. Just look at that. In his career, he set catching marks for defensive games, putouts, assists, caught stealing, and stolen bases against. The last three of these marks still stand as records today. Over his early career, following his debut with the Blue Stockings, he would bounce back and forth between the minor leagues and the majors. He played for several teams over the years, including the Detroit Tigers in 1903 and 1912. In his later years, he served as a player coach. Deacon Jim passed away on October 31st, 1936, following several years of illness, a stroke, and finally pneumonia. He was survived by his wife May and his brother George. He had no children. He was considered the most consistent and leading catcher in his era and its most durable. Today, his headstone at Riverside Cemetery has an image of crossed bats and a baseball above his name. Ruth Fairchild Rogers was a pioneer of the dental fluoride treatment program in Michigan. She was born in January 1893 in Albion, and she was a 1911 graduate of Albion High School and a 1915 graduate of Albion College. She began her early career in Chicago when she joined the Cooks County Dental Assistants Association. She would serve as the president of that association from 1930 to 1934. She was also one of the organizers of the American Dental Assistants Association, where she served as president and editor of the first 4 national examinations. She would also serve as a general secretary for the ADAA for 3 years and serve on the member certification board. She completed her registered dental hygienist program at the University of Michigan in 1933. She would later become the first dental consultant for the Michigan Department of Health in 1937, serving in that position into the 1950s. She became a major force in educating parents and teachers about fluoride treatment programs in her career and spent much of her time speaking on the subject. She passed away in Albion in September 1978 at the age of 85. Carl A. Schumacher was a headstone that I merely walked past while visiting Riverside Cemetery, and I felt compelled to video it and do later research on his story, and I'm sure glad I did. He was a member of Albion's prominent Schumacher family, which erected numerous buildings and factories in Albion. He was born in Albion in September 1871, a son of German immigrants. After attending public schools, he was a student at Albion College School of Music for a time, and then joined his father and brother in the building contracting business. He married Otigli Lorick in 1892 at the St. Paul's Lutheran Church. In addition to his successful career as a building supervisor, he was awarded a contract with the American Bridge Building Company to superintend the rebuilding of the famous Y Bridge in Zanesville, Ohio in 1900 to 1901, which he successfully accomplished. The bridge is unusual in that it is the fork of two rivers. This ultimately was the fourth time the Y Bridge had been rebuilt, and this time it was uncovered and made of reinforced concrete. This new incarnation of the famous bridge would last 81 years before being rebuilt again from 1983 to 1984, still modeling the original design of 1901 by A Schumacher. The Y Bridge received worldwide attention over the many years. The bridge is literally shaped like a Y, and it spans the Muskingum River as it joins the Licking River. Ripley's Believe It or Not featured the Zanesville Y Bridge as the only bridge in the world where you can cross and still be on the same side of the river. Airplane pilots have long had the Y Bridge capture their attention. Amelia Earhart once called the city of Zanesville the most recognizable city in the country because of the Y Bridge being such a distinct visible landmark from the air. When he completed this project, the American Bridge Company management offered him to supervise the construction of the Sault Ste. Marie No. 2 lock, but he declined the offer. He also turned down an offer of the Chicago and Northwestern Company to affiliate with its bridge construction department, and he decided instead to return home to Albion to his wife. After returning to Albion from that 2-year project, Carl supervised the building of the residence of Harry B. Barker, the vice president and manager of the Albion Malleable Iron Company. He would go on to play a prominent role in the construction of the Keenan and Hess Foundry, the Parker Kessler Block, before also erecting some of the buildings at the Albion Malleable Iron Company. After completing the buildings with the latter, Carl went to work for the Malleable Iron Company as a superintendent, serving there until he passed away. He died in 1938 at the age of 77 in Sheldon Memorial Hospital following a serious illness and months of failing health. His wife passed away earlier in 1933. He was survived by 2 sons, George and Harold. This final story is that of Joseph Battersby Duckworth. He was born in 1902 in Savannah, Georgia. He enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps as a flying cadet in 1927 at the age of 25. He received his wings and reserve commission at Kelly Field, Texas, the following year. After graduation, he flew for the Ford Motor Company, the Curtiss Wright Flying Service, and Eastern Airlines. It was during this time that he developed his knowledge of instrument flight, while obtaining a law degree from the University of Miami in the meantime. In late 1940, he was called into active duty in the rank of major and promoted to lieutenant colonel soon after the U.S. joined World War II. He was shocked at the profound ignorance of instrument flying throughout the Air Corps and appalled at the losses sustained from that type of ignorance, which were greater than the losses due to actual combat. During the rest of the war, he introduced the knowledge of instrument flying at various schools, first at Columbus Army Flying School in Columbus, Mississippi, and then at Bryan Air Base. He helped to standardize instrument flight instruction within the Air Corps. Duckworth's most notable single achievement occurred on July 27, 1943, when he flew an AT-6 single-engine trainer into a small but strong hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico near Galveston, Texas, becoming the first person to safely fly through a hurricane. After the war, he served as the head of the Safety Bureau of the Civil Aeronautics Board in Washington, D.C., and eventually retired from the Air Force in 1955 after serving as a base commander of Hickman Air Force Base in Hawaii. His legacy and dedication to the advancement of instrument flying has earned him the title of Father of Modern Instrument Flight, and the fundamentals of his instruction are still taught today to pilots all over the world. He died in July of 1964 in Battle Creek, Michigan. Today, the Air Force presents the Colonel Joseph B. Duckworth Instrument Award annually to the individual or unit making the greatest contribution to aerospace instrument flight. Quite a legacy.
Well, that's going to conclude today's journey through history here at Albion Riverside Cemetery. And if you liked today's video, please take a minute to hit the like button down there, subscribe to the channel, share the video with others, and be sure to check out my podcast, Tales of Southwest Michigan's Past, where I carry a lot more stories than I often have time to bring to film. So until next time, thanks for watching.